There is something in the air that cannot be explained logically, an almost mineral tension, as if time had stopped in the details, in the silence of the messages that don't arrive, in the memories that return without being called. As January draws to a close, certain signs don't just feel it, they translate it. Scorpio is among them. According to astrology, this final stretch of the month activates the field of deep regeneration, especially for those who carry the Scorpio archetype. This is not about the end of the cycle. It is about energetic closure, a closure that requires no warning, no spectacle. It just requires awareness. The position of Mars, ruler of Scorpio, combined with tense aspects from the moon until the 25th, creates a rare configuration. It's not a promise but a scenario. Doors that previously seemed ajar now ask for a decision. Some bonds weaken, some thoughts begin to pulse again, and maybe that has everything to do with what you're feeling right now. Scorpio never needed an audience to change their skin, and astrologically the final stretch of January favors exactly that. Silent cuts, internal reorganizations, distancing that needs no explanation. What is at stake is not a new beginning, but what needs to be left behind so that February does not repeat patterns. This is not just any phase. It is a period that, according to the spiritual reading of many astrologers, can serve as a turning point for those who understand the signs. But what signs are these? And how can Scorpio interpret this journey without getting lost along the way? Stay until the end, because what comes now can open a new lens on the coming days, especially if your chart carries this sign in strategic points. Therefore, every detail that will be said here matters, not as an absolute truth, but as a symbolic reading that can resonate with what you are experiencing now. Scorpio, more than any other sign, deals with layers, with depths that are not always visible at first glance. That's why understanding the movement of these last days of January isn't just about astrology, it's about recognizing patterns, realizing where energy leaks are, and most importantly, deciding what no longer makes sense to carry. If, at any point, what is being said here makes sense to you, even if it's just a detail, write it in the comments. Sharing in this space is also a type of symbolic confirmation. Scorpio carries deep codes, and when a Scorpio speaks, he also heals. You feel may be what others cannot yet name. This content was created with precision, based on the real astrological aspects of this end of the month, and the symbolic field that surrounds the sign of Scorpio. So if this type of reading helps you understand more of what's happening inside, and not just on the outside, leave a like, not as a favor, but as a seal that this content must continue to exist. And if you feel like you are part of this group that seeks to see the invisible and translate what many ignore, consider signing up here. This journey is made in parts, and what comes next may be even more revealing. When Mars approaches the moon in a tension configuration, like the one that marks the last days of this January, we are not facing ordinary turbulence. According to traditional astrology and deeper mystical interpretations, this type of aspect does not provoke visible reactions immediately, but reverberates in internal, emotional, unconscious layers. For Scorpio, a sign that is born with a natural tendency to psychic diving and regeneration through pain, this transit represents an intimate call, not to act in the external world, but to face what pulsates within. And the curious thing is that this inside often manifests itself in silences, in the distancing of someone who seemed close, in the sudden change of thoughts, in the memory that returns like an old whisper that asks for a response. We are facing a period in which the collective unconscious is in turmoil, but Scorpio, due to its archetype, carries a specific sensitivity to capture what others call intuition, but which for this sign, in fact, is concentrated perception. When the energy of Mars is in tension with the moon, feelings gain temperature, but they do not scream. They press. They require decisions that are not always verbal. It is a fertile field for symbolic cuts, walking away without fighting, ending without announcing, leaving it behind without dramatizing. Because, according to the spiritual reading of the zodiac, there are closures that need silence to complete the cycle, and Scorpio has ancestral wisdom to understand this. This phase is not about visible transformations, such as moving to another city or starting a new project. It's about energetic closures that begin with a strange, sometimes even uncomfortable feeling, as if something is out of place, even if everything appears to be in order. I moved it. The celestial mind now activates exactly this field, the field of perceptions that do not require proof, but that impose themselves with the force of an invisible certainty. This type of certainty does not come from the rational mind, but from a type of wisdom that Scorpio carries in its body, on its skin, in its hidden memories. There are those who will live these days with restlessness, others with exhaustion, some with an inexplicable desire to disappear for a few days, retreat, avoid conversations, clean the house or review old messages. All of these signs are variations of the same thing, a field of closure that sets in so that February doesn't repeat old patterns. And even if this is not consciously perceived by everyone, Scorpio feels it. And more than feeling it, it resonates with it. Because this sign doesn't fear ruptures, it grows stronger with them. When Mars acts defiantly over the moon, there is no room for half-truths. Emotions that were being pushed under the rug come back to the surface. Emotional awareness requires space. And this is the time when many Scorpios feel emotionally denser, but also more lucid, as if a veil fell, revealing where there are still effective emotional or spiritual ties that need to be released. It's not about an abrupt break, nor about cutting on impulse. The purpose of this energy is not destruction, it is purification. It's the kind of cleaning that only those who have been through depths know how to do. Within this atmosphere, there is also a reconfiguration of self-image. It is common that during this period Scorpio begins to question old beliefs about themselves, especially those that were built to please or protect. Does this still serve me? Why do I still maintain this bond? This version I built of myself, is it real or is it defense? These are questions that arise almost effortlessly as part of the energetic field of this phase, and each question carries within it the seed of a decision. Astrology, when understood not as a fixed destination, but as a symbolic map of influence, offers valuable reading for these days. We are living in a moment where Scorpio ruler Mars is activating internal cuts, and when that happens, there is no better scenario to abandon the excess, the noise, the distractions that take up time and sap energy. Scorpio is known for its ability to enter into silence and return with multiplied power. This is the tone that may be building now. In this sense, the end of January becomes more than just the turn of the month. It becomes an energetic threshold, a stretch where the past begins to unravel at the right time, so that the future does not need to carry what has already been overcome. But to do this, you need to recognize what is trying to dissolve, even if it still insists on appearing firm. And this reading is not for everyone. It's for those who have the courage to look inside and not back down, for those who understand that discomfort is sometimes a portal of liberation. This is where the presence of Scorpio proves to be essential, because while other signs may resist what ends, Scorpio leans towards what ends, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. After all, this sign doesn't stick to the surface. It lives on the truth that lives behind appearances. And when astrology indicates that Mars is in tension with the moon, this is not just a technical fact. It's a code, an invitation, a transformation password that needs to be deciphered calmly, but in depth. And you are having access to this reading now. If what has been said so far affects you in any way, even if in a subtle way, comment below. Share your perception about this end of the month, especially if you have strong Scorpio in your chart, whether on the sun, moon, or ascendant. Your words may resonate with those who are also feeling it, but have not yet found the language to express it. Take the opportunity to leave a like if this reading brought clarity or connection, and subscribe to continue receiving these interpretations that respect your time. There are times when absence weighs more than presence, and it is exactly this subtle density that marks the last days of January for those who carry Scorpio energy in sensitive points of the map. It's not an external noise, it's not an open crisis. It's the silence between unsent messages. It's the void in the space that someone used to occupy. It's that uncomfortable feeling that something has moved out of place without anyone having moved anything. According to astrological and spiritual principles that align with the Scorpio vibration, this type of discomfort does not come for nothing. He is code. He's a track. It is the silent warning that something within the field is adjusting. even without the permission of logic. Spirituality points out that there are bonds that are not made of words or visible commitments. They are soul contracts, connections formed in moments of pain, of promise, of attachment, of fear. And when Mars, the play, granddaughter who governs internal struggles, approaches the vibration of the moon in its most emotional state, these connections begin to lose strength. But they don't go away smoothly. They resist. They show themselves in dreams, in random memories, in repetitive thoughts that come back even when you have already decided to move forward rationally. The spiritual field does not operate through logical decisions. It responds to frequency, emotion, to what has not yet been completely released. And Scorpio knows this, not just by life experience but by archetypal structure. This sign is not related to the superficial. When something or someone connects to Scorpio energy, it is complete, it's visceral, and so, cutting these ties, even if they are already frayed, requires more than a conscious choice. It demands recognition. It requires courage to face what is hidden behind the longing, behind the anger, behind the emotional dependence that often disguises itself as loyalty. The silence you may be feeling these days is not empty. It's preparation. According to spiritual currents that dialogue with symbolic astrology, there are periods in which the soul enters into withdrawal, not due to weakness, but due to energetic wisdom. It's the moment when the noise of the world no longer interferes, and you start to hear what is really being asked of you. And that's where Scorpio's conscience stands out. It knows how to decode messages from the invisible. She feels the change in tone in relationships even when the other person still pretends to be normal. She notices when the energetic exchange breaks down, even before the physical separation takes place. In the last days of January, this sensitivity increases, not only because of the astrological transit, but because the solar cycle is about to head towards a new axis, and Scorpio feels these transitions more intensely. Even if the sun is not in your sign, the end of a month carries the same symbolism as the end of an internal process. And as if guided by a mystical clock, the Scorpio spirit begins to realize where there are still residues of unresolved connections, promises that no longer make sense, emotional alliances that were signed out of fear of loneliness and not out of truth. That's why on these days it's common to feel a sense of sudden separation from people with whom you had a lot of affinity. Sometimes, without explanation, the paths diverge, and this can generate doubt, sadness, confusion. But when you look at it from a broader perspective, these separations are part of a necessary movement, the release of pacts that energetically have already expired. Astrology does not talk about definitive ruptures just because of planetary transits, but it shows us where heaven and the soul meet so that something can be understood on another level. And this is one of those moments. The spirituality linked to the Scorpio sign has always taught that not everything needs to be resolved with words. There are healings that happen in the unspoken. There are understandings that arise in silence, and there are decisions that can only be made when you stop resisting what the universe has already closed for you. When signs of withdrawal, discomfort, and disconnection appear frequently, the invitation is not to force a return, it is to observe what is wanting to leave. Scorpio, with its magnetic force and power of regeneration, has exactly the energy necessary for this type of internal reading. Intense, true, and above all, honest. It's not easy to let go of stories that left an impact, of people who once seemed irreplaceable, or of versions of yourself that worked for a while, but now weigh heavily. But there is a mystical beauty to this process. Silent liberation. Scorpio doesn't need to make a fuss to close cycles. He just shuts them up inside. He feels, integrates, gives silent thanks, and follows. And it is exactly this ability to transform the invisible that is being called upon. Now, if you are feeling this call, even if you don't know exactly what is being asked for, it is a sign that your field is already reacting. It may be that you are more reclusive, you may be more sensitive, or even more irritated for no apparent reason. All of these are manifestations of this spiritual cleansing process that does not scream, but whispers. And these whispers have direction. They are not lost. They are guiding. During these days, it is important to be aware of your body's small reactions, recurring dreams, and synchronicities that arise with names, music, places, and situations from the past. These appearances are not always requests for return. Often they are just signs that that energy needs to be recognized one last time before leaving. When you accept to look at it without attachment, without forcing yourself to understand everything, something inside reorganizes itself, and this movement creates space for the new, not the new superficial, but the new true, aligned with who you are becoming now. So breathe, bottom. Understand what goes through you. Listen to the silence. He has been speaking louder than ever these days. And even if it feels uncomfortable, that silence is a portal. It's not the end. It's a pass. And in the next section, we will delve even deeper into this crossing that is happening, not outside, but inside, where the true Scorpio territory lives. If everything you're hearing makes sense to you in some way, comment below what you've noticed in the last few days. If you felt changes in your relationships, if you dreamed about people who were missing, if you had stronger intuitions, or if you just felt a strange presence of withdrawal, share your experience. Anyone who knows the real vibration of the Scorpio sign knows that this is not a territory where pain is ignored or stifled. It is where pain is transmuted. It is where each wound, no matter how silent it may have been, becomes a symbol, a mark that does not paralyze, but instructs. And in the last days of January, this pedagogy of the invisible gains strength, because what was lived in silence, what was felt without an audience, what was endured with dignity even without applause, carries a wisdom that cannot be taught in words. According to astrological movements, this final stretch of the month acts as a kind of karmic mirror. It's not a judgment, it's revelation. And we are not just talking about external facts, but about deep insights that emerge in moments of reflection. The distancing of people, the silences that seemed too hard, the crying that came when no one was looking, the desire to give up on something that seemed promising. None of this, no matter how painful it was, is a sign of weakness. Scorpio knows that certain pains are not obstacles, they are initiations. And January, with all its astrological tensions involving Mars, the Moon, and the approach of Venus with subtle aspects, exposed where illusion still exists, where dependence disguised as love still exists, and where the desire to please silences the inner voice. It's no exaggeration to say that this month brought a rough emotional cleansing. But unlike thoughtless cuts, it was a cleanup that took place due to the exhaustion of attempts. Many Scorpios felt in an almost visceral way that there was no longer any way to maintain certain postures, maintain certain conversations, carry certain loyalties, not because there was a lack of love, but because there was finally clarity. The clarity that sacrificing yourself for the other in the name of connection is not true love, it is conditioning. And that's exactly where the scar is born. When the soul understands that surviving something is not the end of the process but the beginning of a reconfiguration, these marks, which most do not see, are powerful codes within the Scorpio journey. They are like internal runes that take shape over the years. Every time Scorpio feels like they have lost something, they are actually being called to recover something deeper, their energetic integrity. January served as a field for confrontation with these symbolic losses. Loss of identity, bonds, social roles that were already weighing more than they were nourishing. And when the Scorpio soul realizes this wear and tear, there is no longer any way to pretend. The body starts to show signs. Speech reduces. The look becomes more direct, and silence begins to occupy the spaces where there was effort before. This type of transformation does not appear on social networks. It does not translate into public statements, but it reverberates in subtle attitudes that begin to emerge. A message that is no longer sent, a favor that is no longer offered out of obligation, a presence that is no longer given out of fear of rejection. It's these small, silent decisions that show Scorpio is coming to his senses. And the most interesting thing is that this return does not happen with euphoria. It happens with a strange serenity, as if what was once urgent has now lost its importance. And that is liberating. In mystical astrology, it is understood that closure cycles are not linear. They don't follow the calendar, but planetary transits indicate when certain themes gain more power. And now, as February approaches, we have Venus starting a cycle that directly touches the field of alliances and personal value. This means that everything that was revealed in January, especially in the emotional and relational fields, did not come to punish, but to prepare. There is no way to start a new emotional dynamic with the same old mechanisms. Scorpio, which already has a natural sensitivity to recognize patterns, is being activated at this moment for an even finer cleaning, that of intentions. How many times have you stayed in a relationship just because you were afraid of emptiness? How many times have you silenced your own truth to keep the peace? How many times have you offered more than you could and called it love? These are questions that January's symbolic field brought to the surface, not as guilt, but as an invitation. Invitation to reposition your value. And this replacement does not occur with shallow self-affirmations or promises to be strong. It happens when you look at your scars and recognize them as maps. Maps that show where you got lost, but also where you found yourself. What Venus proposes from now on is a realignment between what you offer and what you receive. And for that, the past month had to be arid, dense, demanding. Scorpio does not evolve on the surface. Scorpio needs the friction, the breaking, the feeling of symbolic death so that a new identity can emerge. And if you've experienced something like this in the last few days, even if in silence, know that this is part of the internal strengthening process that precedes any real connection with others. Before opening up to a new kind of affection, you need to open up to a new kind of self-worth. And self-worth, within the Scorpio vibration, is not measured by praise. It is measured by the silent peace that arises when you no longer need to explain yourself. It is measured by the ability to be alone without feeling abandoned. It is measured by the clarity that saying no can be an act of love for oneself. January was that proving ground. And if you walked through it feeling like you lost something, perhaps now you'll begin to realize what you've actually been freed from. Comment here if you felt crossed by any of these experiences this month, if something broke in you or around you, if there were separations that confused you, or if for the first time you had the courage to admit what you really want to keep close and what you need to let go. Share your reading from these days. What many spiritual currents reveal, and which symbolic astrology reinforces, is that there are certain moments when the universe stops whispering and begins to fall silent, not as a punishment, but as a sign that the answer will no longer come from outside. Scorpio, as it carries the force of transmutation in its archetype, does not have the privilege of voluntary ignorance. This sign feels the end before the end. Realize when something has lost meaning, even if it is still standing, functioning, appearing normal. And when the end presents itself, but is ignored, the Scorpio field begins to come into tension. The energy that previously flowed in silence begins to create blockages, disturbed dreams, recurring memories, unexplained physical fatigue, the feeling of carrying something you can't name. These are some of the more subtle symptoms that the unspoken is asking for passage. Scorpio often tries to resist. After all, it is not easy to accept that certain connections have reached their energetic limit, even when there are no fights, even when there is still affection, even when the story seems to have everything to continue. But spiritual truth is not measured by how long something lasts, but by the intensity with which the soul responds to presence. When the presence of the other no longer nourishes, no longer warms, no longer pulses, there is a disconnection. And persisting in these connections, according to traditions linked to the esoteric principles of the zodiac, can generate internal distortions. It's not that the energy turns against you, but it begins to accumulate in areas that become ill. The body feels it. Focus disappears. Creativity closes. Thoughts become repetitive and circular. Scorpio has a keen instinct to perceive what no longer vibrates. But this instinct, when stifled by rationalizations or emotional attachments, begins to create a field of interference. It's as if the soul screams, but the mind plays loud music so it doesn't hear. January, especially in its final days, acts as a mirror of rupture, not external, internal. It is time to look at where there is insistence, where there is still forced hope, at the scenarios that have already demonstrated exhaustion, but which, out of habit or fear, continue to be nurtured. And it is important to understand that this is not limited to emotional relationships. It may be work that no longer connects you with your purpose. It may be a posture you adopt to please others. It could be a social role that was assigned to you and that you perform without a soul. When the energy of the end is ignored, these roles begin to weigh down. And Scorpio, due to its deep connection with the invisible, feels this weight like no one else. even if you don't say it, even if you don't admit it, even if you continue to fulfill your obligations. Inside, something is already falling apart, and when what's inside starts to break, everything outside starts to seem fake. Astrology teaches us that planetary cycles don't force change. They reveal where we are ready to change. And Mars, which rules Scorpio's energetic structure, acts with brute but fair force. When in friction with other celestial bodies, as happens at the end of January, it points out where the energy is misdirected. And when this energy, which should be used to build the new, is trapped in maintaining the old, the body and spirit suffer, not for punishment, but by detour. Every time you choose to hold something your soul has already released, you waste vital energy, and this expense is not noticed immediately. It accumulates in emotional fatigue, procrastination, lack of meaning. Life loses its color, and Scorpio, having an aesthetic sense linked to depth, cannot stand living in the shallows. That's why, at this point in the journey, cleaning is more important than any fresh start. Many want to start February with new plans, goals, objectives. But the most honest question you can ask now is, what needs to be closed before the new one really arrives? Because it's not about wanting something new. It's about being available to him. And availability requires space. Space requires detachment. And detachment for Scorpio has never been about walking away coldly. It's about withdrawing with awareness. It's about understanding that not every end is failure. Sometimes it's just a cycle completed. And when a cycle is completed, staying there becomes prison. Often the universe places obvious signs in our path, an invitation that is canceled at the last minute, a project that insists on not flowing, a relationship where everything needs to be talked about, forced, insisted on. And when these signals are repeated and yet ignored, the energy begins to stagnate. And in Scorpio, stagnation is not neutral. It's corrosive. The soul of this sign cannot tolerate inertia disguised as stability. That's why these final days of January are so important. They represent an invisible turning point, where the spiritual field calls for positioning, not drastic decisions, but energetic honesty. If something in you has been screaming, even if subtly, for a cycle to end, this is the time to listen, not in a hurry, not afraid, but with respect to your intuition. Scorpio doesn't need arguments to know what he feels. You just need silence to recognize the truth. And if this truth is nudging you, if it appears in gestures, in loose phrases, in synchronicities, perhaps it is not trying to convince you. Maybe she's just reminding you of what you already know, but haven't yet had the strength to admit. If this content has touched any point within you, if you have somehow identified with what has been said so far, share in the comments what has been the biggest sign that you feel has been sent to you in the last few days. It could be something subtle, it could be something recurring, it could be something you've been avoiding looking at. But when you share, you not only validate your process, you also help other people realize theirs. Dreaming about cloudy water, feeling the dense presence in specific environments, noticing goosebumps that have no clear physical or emotional origin, are manifestations that, according to the spiritual knowledge associated with symbolic astrology, signal that the energy field is in the process of untying knots. And these nodes, most of the time, are not external. They are formed in internal layers. Poorly digested emotions, unfinished bonds, postponed decisions, memories that insist on returning for no apparent reason. Scorpio, by nature, does not live in the obvious. It inhabits the territory of the symbolic, the hidden, what vibrates even when it is not visible. And that's exactly why the signs don't come to him as rational warnings, but as bodily impressions, subtle pressures in the chest, inexplicable impulses that arise in the middle of the routine. When a significant change in energy flow approaches, the body reacts before the mind understands. This is one of the characteristics of the spiritual map of those who carry Scorpio in strategic positions. And during the transition between the last days of January and the beginning of February, this sensitivity increases. This is not about guesswork or closed predictions. This is symbolic listening. Therefore, the feeling of being on the edge of something can be accompanied by a series of experiences, vivid dreams with symbols of passage, discomfort in places that were previously familiar, spontaneous withdrawals that arise without any apparent conflict, and an intense desire to withdraw, to not participate in interactions that were previously common. It is the spiritual field retreating to reorganize itself. The Scorpio sign does not respond well to superficiality, and therefore, when changes approach, they do not arrive packaged in artificial optimism. They announce themselves in a crude, sometimes even uncomfortable way. The Scorpio soul recognizes the truth through the cuts, the silences, the voids that appear unexpectedly, and therefore, the body also becomes an oracle. The chills, the insomnia, the desire to sleep longer, the irritation without a direct cause, the feeling that something is trying to emerge, all of these phenomena are clues. These are symptoms of the soul trying to signal that February will not accept continuing to carry what should have been released now. According to many studies linked to spiritualized astrology, when a cycle is unraveling but consciousness is still stuck to the old script, the field creates interference errance, and this interference appears as confusion. The mind tries to plan, but everything seems cloudy. The heart wants to decide, but the motivation does not appear. The paths that once seemed clear are now shrouded in a kind of fog, and at this point, Scorpio finds itself faced with an old dilemma. Follow the impulse that arises from within, or wait for the external world to give a more obvious signal. The answer, like almost everything in this sign, does not come from outside. It is built in silence, in observation, in the patience of those who are not afraid to delve into discomfort to find a real answer. That's why February presents itself, not as just any beginning, but as a direct consequence of what Scorpio manages to release in these final days of January. And this release does not require dramatic actions. Often, the simple recognition that something has already ended is enough to open up space in the field. This recognition can come through symbolic dreams. Dark water represents unresolved emotions. Narrow corridors show internal transitions. Elevators stalling indicate energetic blockages between the conscious and unconscious. None of this is literal, but it all communicates. And Scorpio, due to its natural connection with mysteries, already knows this. What few people understand is that Scorpio does not seek new things out of a desire for change. He seeks the new because he knows when something has died and continues to be sustained only by fear. And the signs that anticipate February are not there to scare you. They come to liberate you. They are subtle warnings that there are still residues of situations that need to be recognized before they are left behind. It may be an old feeling that still takes up space. It could be a promise you made to yourself and never kept. It could be a character that you have played for years and that no longer represents you. All of this is coming to a head because Venus's entry into areas that touch the field of personal worth will require authenticity, and authenticity only flourishes on clean ground. When these signs appear, the dreams, the chills, the sudden changes in mood, the encounters that seem to have a greater purpose, it's not about luck or bad luck. They are codes, and every Scorpio, conscious or not, has a type of spiritual antenna that captures these movements. The challenge is not to dismiss these experiences as random. The challenge is to look carefully and ask, what is still stuck in me that prevents the new from manifesting? Because there's no point in creating goals for February if the emotional field is still entangled in old stories. And Scorpio didn't come to live half-heartedly. When this sign enters into something, it is completely. And when it comes out, it needs to come out clearly, without residue, without fragments that pull it back. This is the ideal time to observe what has been repeating itself. Words, symbols, behavior patterns, names, memories, everything that is repeated carries a message. And in this moment of energy, transition, these repetitions are not happening by chance. They are like reminders from the universe asking for something to be recognized, integrated, or released. There is no urgency, but there is depth, and depth requires presence. Therefore, Scorpio is now called to be fully aware of the signs even if they do not understand them immediately. If you have felt this symbolic presence in your days, if you have noticed a subtle change in the air, a desire to withdraw, or even physical and emotional signs that you cannot explain rationally, write below how you have been reading these last few days. What was the strangest, strongest, most insistent sign that appeared? We are facing a sign governed by deep forces, crossed by the symbolism of death and rebirth, which does not fear the end. It just demands that it make sense. Scorpio carries within itself the code of the phoenix. It does not live to maintain itself. It lives to reinvent itself. And at the end of January, with the astrological tensions that have been emerging and the symbolic signs that have intensified, it is natural that many are feeling a tiredness that seems to have no physical origin. But this exhaustion, contrary to popular belief, is not causeless exhaustion. It is a consequence of everything that is being processed within the spiritual field, without being said out loud. There are cycles that end with a slamming door, others with a definitive conversation, but there are those who close themselves, in silence, without external rituals, just with an intimate decision made in the soul. Scorpio knows this kind of ending, and that's exactly what the last days of January are demanding. A decision that does not need to be announced, but that needs to be supported internally. It's not about cutting someone off, making statements, showing strength. It is about recognizing that the energy that once united now no longer pulses. And that's not weakness. This is energetic maturity. According to symbolic astrology, when Mars, like the planet that rules Scorpio, ends its cycle of tension with the moon and begins to give way to new aspects, the field calls for an internal adjustment. This adjustment, however, is not immediate. It depends on each person's ability to allow themselves to finish what needs to be finished, not out of impulse, but out of clarity. It is not a cut made in anger. It is a release made with spiritual lucidity. And Scorpio, when connected to their real power, understands that there is more strength in letting go than in resisting. The moment calls for ritual, but not the traditional ritual with candles and magic words. The true rite now is silent. It's when you close your eyes and recognize what's holding you in the same place. It's when you honestly observe the bonds that no longer speak to who you are becoming. This is when you stop waiting for an external attitude and decide, within yourself, to end the repetition. This is the kind of ritual that changes the field, because it does not depend on external factors. It just depends on your willingness to be true to yourself. And what happens when this ritual is done with presence? The field lines up. The body begins to respond more easily. The mind finds more clarity. Emotions become less confusing. It's as if a fog dissipates, not because the world has changed, but because you have changed the internal place from which you observe the world. Scorpio has this ability to rebuild your reality based on your own surrender. But this delivery does not happen without a cost. It is necessary to go through the process of detachment. And that, for this sign, is not a detail. It is a path of transformation. During these last few days, you may have felt the urge to delete conversations, review decisions, change environments, clean out old objects. These impulses are not random. These are movements of the unconscious trying to prepare the ground for a new frequency. And when that happens, resisting is prolonging the pain. Scorpio was not made to live under anesthesia. It was made to feel. But feeling does not mean remaining in suffering. Feeling, for this archetype, is a way of going through pain until it becomes learning. There is ancestral wisdom in knowing when something has ended. What many call an end, Scorpio calls a passage. The end of a phase, of a relationship, of an idea about yourself does not need to be accompanied by guilt or anger. It can come with peace, with an internal silence that does not seek justification, but carries the certainty that it was enough. January, with everything it brought, was not just an ordinary month. It was a proving ground, a mirror that showed what is still being held by fear, by attachment, by habit. And now, with the entry of Venusian energy on the themes of value and choices, the universe begins to reorganize its paths. But for that, you need to have space. Spirituality teaches us that where there is excess, there is no flow. Where there is attachment, there is no lightness. And where there is a lie to oneself, there is no expansion. Scorpio, no matter how silent he is, feels when he is betraying his truth. And so, this is the time to stop and ask yourself, what inside me is still insisting on surviving when it should have already left? What version of myself do I keep feeding just because I'm afraid I won't know who I'll be without it? And what do I need to silence now so that February finds space to flourish? These questions are not simple, and they may not have immediate answers, but they are the ones who open the door to the new. And when Scorpio allows himself to ask these kinds of questions, he doesn't just change his reality, he transforms the way he inhabits time. He stops running after what he has lost and starts walking towards what makes sense. And this walk even if lonely at first, becomes powerful, because it is based on the truth itself and not on the expectations of others. Scorpio was not made to follow already trodden paths. It was made to open clearings, to cross internal forests where few have the courage to enter. And this end of the cycle, although exhausting, is giving you an invisible compass. You may not see it, but you are being guided. And this direction will not come from outside. It will appear at the exact moment you stop carrying what is no longer yours. February will require presence, coherence, and focus. But none of this will be possible if you are still stuck in situations that end without ending, which continue only by inertia, and they steal your energy without you realizing it. Now more than ever, silence is your best ally. Not the silence that represses, but the silence that heals, what organizes, that separates what is yours from what never was, that reconnects you with your essence, with your value, with your transformation force. Because Scorpio's true strength is not in the intensity of his gaze or the depth of his desire. It lies in your ability to be reborn, to accept the end not as a tragedy but as a portal. And if you've come this far feeling like something inside you already understands, even without knowing how to explain it clearly, write in the comments what these last few days have shown you. What were the most profound signs, the most unexpected learnings, the cycles that you feel are closing even without noise? If you got this far, it's because something inside you is in tune with this journey, and that already says a lot. So take advantage of this moment of connection and subscribe to the channel. Here, each content is designed for those who feel more than they explain, for those who are looking for answers that are not obvious. Leave a like if this message spoke to parts of you that were silent, because this helps this content reach more people who are also in the process. And if you're ready to continue this journey, the next video is already appearing here on the left side of the screen. Click on it now because it is the direct continuation of what you began to awaken here. I'll wait for you there.